You are not behind. You have just been measuring your life against everyone else's highlight reel and calling the difference a deficit. Stop for 1 second and actually look at what you have been doing to yourself. Scrolling past someone's promotion, someone's new house, someone's relationship that looks effortless from 3,000 miles away through a screen that shows you exactly nothing about the fights they had last Tuesday. And every time you scroll past it, something in you quietly concludes that you are losing a race you did not even agree to enter. That feeling, the one sitting in your chest right now, the one that whispers, everyone else figured it out and you did not, is not evidence of anything real. It is the most common lie of this entire generation, and it is working on almost everyone, including the people you think are ahead of you. Here is what nobody tells you about falling behind. You cannot fall behind in a race that does not exist. There is no finish line where everyone gets measured at the same age, against the same criteria, on the same day. That structure lives only in your head, built out of comparison and fear, and you have been treating it like gravity, like a law of physics you cannot escape. It is not a law, it is a story, and stories can be rewritten by the person telling them. The Stoics knew this 2,000 years before Instagram existed, before anyone could perform a life for an audience of strangers. They lived in a world with its own version of comparison, its own version of status anxiety, its own whispers about who was rising and who was falling. And they built an entire philosophy around one brutal, liberating fact. Your timeline is not theirs, and chasing theirs will cost you the only timeline you actually have. What follows are 7 lessons, not motivational fluff you forget by tomorrow morning. 7 specific shifts in how you see your own life, pulled from men who buried children, lost fortunes, were exiled from their homes, and still found a way to stand upright and call their lives good. If they could find peace standing in actual ruins, you can find peace standing in a moment where someone your age just bought a house and you have not. You clicked on this because some part of you is tired of the quiet panic that shows up at 2 in the morning when you start doing math on your own life and the numbers feel wrong. Tired of watching other people's timelines and feeling your own stomach drop. That tiredness is not weakness. It is information. It is your mind telling you that the current way of measuring your life is broken, and you already sense it, even if you have not said it out loud to anyone yet. So here is the first thing you need to hear, and you need to hear it before anything else makes sense. Comparison was never designed to motivate you. It was designed by something older and crueler than any app. Something built into the human brain millions of years before screens existed, to keep you scanning the tribe for threats and rank. Your brain does not know the difference between a real threat to your survival and a stranger's vacation photo. It treats both the same way. It spikes the same alarm. And you have been letting that ancient alarm system run your entire sense of self-worth. That ends now. Not because I am telling you to feel differently, but because once you actually understand the mechanism, you cannot unsee it. You will start noticing the spike happen in real time. You will catch it mid-scroll. And in that moment of catching it, you get something you did not have before, a choice. The Stoics called this the gap between what happens to you and how you respond to it. That gap is the only territory you have ever actually owned in your entire life. Not the outcomes, not the timeline, not whether you are ahead or behind anyone else, just that gap and what you choose to do inside it. 7 lessons are coming. Each one is going to take a piece of that fear apart and hand you back something sturdier than what was there before. Stay through all 7 because the order matters, and the last one is the one that actually changes how you carry yourself when you close this video and go back into your real life. You are not behind. You are just using the wrong map. Lesson 1. The timeline you are panicking about does not exist anywhere except in your own head. And once you see that clearly, it loses most of its power over you. Think about the actual claim hiding underneath the phrase, falling behind. It assumes there is a correct age to hit certain milestones, a correct year to have the career, the relationship, the money, the body, the house. Ask yourself honestly where that schedule came from. You did not write it. No council of wise elders sat down and decided that 30 is when you should own property, or 25 is when you should be settled. That schedule was assembled out of scraps, a cousin's wedding, a classmate's LinkedIn post. A culture that profits enormously from your sense of inadequacy because inadequate people buy things to fix a feeling that no purchase was ever going to fix. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire. Actual life and death decisions, actual wars, actual plagues sweeping through actual cities he was responsible for. And in his private notebook, the one he never intended anyone else to read, he kept reminding himself of the same thing over and over. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Not become one by next year. Not catch up to some imaginary peer group. Be one, starting now, measured against nothing except the version of himself from yesterday. That is the only honest comparison available to any human being who has ever lived. You against you. Last month's version of yourself against this month's version. Not you against a stranger's curated output. Not you against a sibling. Not you against the version of your life you imagined when you were 19 and had no idea what any of this would actually require. Here is where it gets uncomfortable, so sit with it for a second instead of skipping past it. Every time you compare your real, messy, unfinished life to someone else's edited highlight reel, you are comparing a behind-the-scenes documentary to a movie trailer. You see their trailer, you live your documentary. You know every cut scene, every bad day, every moment of doubt in your own story, and you know none of theirs. Of course, the math feels rigged. You are the only person in the comparison who is being shown the full footage. Seneca wrote to a friend once who was drowning in exactly this kind of anxious comparison, constantly checking his progress against other men his age. And Seneca's answer was almost annoyingly simple. He told him that nothing is ours except time, and even that is taken from us before we notice it slipping away. The men he was comparing himself to were not actually further ahead. They were simply further along in spending the same finite resource everyone gets handed at birth, with no instructions and no extensions. This is not a comforting platitude meant to make you feel better for 5 minutes before the anxiety creeps back in. This is a structural fact about how comparison works that, once you actually absorb it, changes your nervous system's response to scrolling. The moment you catch yourself measuring your chapter 3 against someone else's chapter 9, stop. Ask one question. Where was I a year ago, and where am I now? Not where is he? Not where is she? Where were you, and where are you? If the honest answer is that you have grown, even slightly, even in ways nobody applauded, you are not behind. You are simply on your own clock, running at your own pace, through circumstances nobody else has ever lived through, in the exact combination you have lived through them. There is a particular kind of relief that shows up the first time you genuinely let this sink in. Not a loud relief, a quiet exhale. The kind that happens when you put down a weight you did not realize you had been carrying for years. A weight that was never actually yours to carry because the scale it was measured on was never real. Try this today. The next time you feel that familiar drop in your stomach from someone else's update, do not scroll past it numbly. Stop. Name what just happened. Say to yourself, that is not my timeline. That is not my race. And I am not behind in something that was never a competition. Then look at your own life, today, exactly as it is, and find one thing that is further along than it was a year ago. There is always something. Find it, and let that be the only scoreboard you check from now on. Lesson 2. Stop outsourcing your sense of worth to a clock you did not build, and start paying attention to the one thing that was always actually yours, which is what you do with the time you have right now, today, in front of you. Here is a question almost nobody asks themselves honestly. If you took away every external marker, every job title, every relationship status, every number in a bank account, and you were left standing there with nothing but your own daily choices, would you respect the person making them? Not the results those choices produced, the choices themselves, the effort, the honesty, the way you treated people when nothing was riding on it. Most people cannot answer that question quickly, because most people have spent years outsourcing their self-worth to things they do not actually control. The market, other people's opinions, the algorithm, a promotion that depends on a manager's mood as much as your performance. You have been building your sense of who you are on land that was never stable to begin with, and then wondering why you feel like you are constantly sinking. Epictetus had a particular kind of brutal clarity about this, partly because his life left him no room for comfortable illusions. He was born into slavery. He did not get to choose his circumstances. His body was not entirely his own for years, and yet he became one of the most respected teachers in Rome because he figured out something that most free men never do. He separated the things that were his to control from the things that were not, and he stopped spending energy on the second category entirely. His own circumstances were not his to control. His response to them was. That distinction sounds simple when you hear it. It is almost impossible to actually live by, because every instinct in you wants to manage the outcome. You want to control whether you get the job, whether the relationship works out, whether people see your effort and reward it on the timeline you were hoping for. None of that was ever yours to control, and the energy you spend trying to control it anyway is energy stolen directly from the one place it could actually do something. Picture two people doing the exact same job for the exact same number of years. One of them spends every day quietly resentful, checking what everyone else is earning, what everyone else is achieving, convinced the universe owes them a faster outcome. The other one shows up and does the work in front of them as well as it can be done, today, without spending mental energy on a scoreboard they cannot see and do not control. 5 years later, who do you think is calmer? Who do you think actually got better at the work? It is not a coincidence. The energy that the first person burned on comparison was energy the second person spent on actual improvement. This is where the falling behind feeling actually does the most damage, quietly, in the background, without you noticing. It does not just make you feel bad for an afternoon, it pulls your attention away from the only thing that was ever going to move your life forward, which is the next right action in front of you. And it spends that attention instead on a scoreboard built by other people's lives for other people's purposes that has nothing to do with yours. So here is the practice, and it is uncomfortable at first because it asks you to give up something that feels like motivation but is actually just anxiety wearing motivation's clothes. Every time you catch yourself ranking your life against someone else's, redirect that exact same energy into one specific, concrete action you can take today. Not a vague intention, a specific action. Send the email, start the workout, have the conversation you have been avoiding. The feeling of being behind wants you to spiral. Give it work instead. There is something almost mechanical about how well this works once you actually try it, because anxious comparison and focused action cannot occupy the same 5 minutes. You cannot simultaneously spiral about someone else's progress and do the thing in front of you with full attention. One of them has to lose, and you get to decide which one. Your worth was never sitting in a comparison chart. It was sitting in what you did with today. And today is still here, waiting on you to actually show up for it, instead of for the version of your life happening in everyone else's feed. Lesson 3. The version of your life you keep grieving, the one where you started earlier, or chose differently, or got the lucky break someone else got, is not coming back. And the sooner you stop visiting it, the sooner you can actually live in the one you have. There is a particular kind of suffering that has nothing to do with where you actually are, and everything to do with where you think you should have been by now. You picture an alternate version of yourself, who started the business 2 years earlier, who left that relationship sooner, who took the risk you talked yourself out of. And that imaginary person is always doing better than you, always further along, always living the life you secretly believe you deserved if you had just made one different decision at one specific fork in the road. That person does not exist. You built them entirely out of regret and hindsight cheats. It shows you the outcome of the path not taken without showing you any of the cost that path would have actually demanded. You do not get to see the version of yourself who started the business early and watched it fail because the timing was wrong in a way you could not have predicted. You only get the version that succeeded, because regret only builds success stories. It never builds honest ones. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that sounds almost too simple until you actually live through a season of grieving a path you did not take. He reminded himself constantly that it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Read that carefully. The danger was never the wrong starting point. The danger was the failure to start from wherever he actually stood. He was not writing to people with ideal circumstances. He was writing from inside a war camp, dealing with betrayal from people he trusted, managing a body that was sick more often than it was healthy. His own life was nowhere near the version he might have imagined for himself as a young man. He built his philosophy anyway, from exactly where he was standing, not from where he wished he had started. This is the part of falling behind that almost nobody talks about, because it is harder to admit than simple comparison. It is not just that you are looking at other people's progress, it is that you are mourning a version of your own life that never actually existed. And grief for something imaginary is somehow heavier than grief for something real, because it has no ending. A real loss eventually gets processed. An imaginary one keeps generating new what-ifs forever, because there is no limit to how many different decisions you could have made differently. Here is what breaks that cycle, and it is not comfortable, but it works. Stop asking what your life would look like if you had started sooner. Start asking what your life actually requires of you starting today, from exactly where you are standing, with exactly the resources you currently have. That question has an answer. The other one never will, because it is built on a fiction that keeps rewriting itself every time you examine it. Seneca spent years in exile, stripped of his position, separated from the life he had built in Rome, and he wrote to his mother during that exile, not pretending the loss did not hurt, but refusing to let the loss define how he spent the years he had left. He did not waste his exile mourning the senator he might have remained. He used it to write some of the most enduring philosophy that still gets read 2,000 years later. The man who refused to keep grieving an alternate timeline built something real in the one he actually had. You are allowed to feel the sting of a path not taken. That feeling is human, and pretending it does not exist does not make you stronger. It just makes you dishonest with yourself. But there is a difference between feeling it once, honestly, and then setting it down, versus visiting it daily, like a shrine you maintain out of habit. One processes the loss. The other one keeps you trapped inside a life that stopped existing the moment you chose a different door. Today, name the alternate timeline you have been quietly grieving. Say it once, clearly, even just to yourself. Then close the door on it deliberately. Not because it did not matter, but because the only life available to you was always the one in front of you right now, and it has been waiting this entire time for you to actually walk into it. Lesson 4. Other people's pace is not a threat to yours, and the moment you stop treating someone else's success as proof of your own failure, you free up enough energy to actually build something real. There is a strange trick the mind plays on almost everyone at some point. It sees someone else succeed and immediately translates that success into a personal verdict, as if the universe only has a limited supply of good outcomes, and every time someone else gets one, your own chances quietly shrink. You feel it the moment a friend gets the opportunity you wanted, the moment someone your age announces something you have not achieved yet. A small, ugly voice asks, why them and not you? And underneath that question sits an assumption nobody ever bothers to examine, the assumption that their win came at the cost of yours.
It did not. It almost never does.
Their timeline running forward changes nothing about where your own timeline currently stands. The two are not connected by some invisible seesaw where their rise requires your fall. That connection exists only in the part of your brain that evolved to track tribal scarcity, back when resources really were limited, and someone else's gain really could mean your loss. You are not living in that world anymore, but the wiring did not get the memo, and it fires the same old alarm at a friend's promotion that it would have fired at a rival tribe taking the last of the food. Epictetus taught something that sounds almost rude until you sit with it long enough to understand the kindness inside it. He said that you should not seek to have events happen as you wish, but rather wish that events happen as they do. Not as some passive surrender to whatever occurs, but as a refusal to let your peace depend on outcomes you were never going to control anyway, including other people's outcomes. Their success was never yours to manage, approve of, or feel threatened by. It belongs entirely to their column, and it has zero effect on what belongs to yours. Once you actually believe this, something shifts that you can feel almost immediately. You stop experiencing other people's wins as a quiet referendum on your worth. You start seeing them as exactly what they are: evidence that good outcomes are possible, not proof that yours are running out. That shift alone removes an enormous amount of unnecessary weight from your daily life, because you are no longer carrying everyone else's progress as a measurement of your own deficiency. This does not mean you stop caring about your own growth. It means you stop confusing someone else's growth with a verdict on yours. You can be genuinely happy for a friend's success and still feel the sting of wanting something similar for yourself. Both of those things are allowed to exist in the same chest at the same time. What is not required, and what has been quietly destroying your peace, is the belief that their good news is automatically bad news for you. So here is the final practice, the one that ties everything else together. The next time someone announces a win, anyone, a stranger online, a friend, a sibling, notice the first flash of comparison if it comes, because it probably will. Do not fight it or shame yourself for feeling it. Just notice it, name it quietly, and then deliberately redirect your attention back to your own next step. Not their next step, yours. The work in front of you that has been waiting patiently while you were busy measuring yourself against everyone else's race. Your life was never a competition against the people around you. It was always, only, a private conversation between who you were yesterday and who you are choosing to become today. The Stoics did not build their philosophy in comfortable circumstances, surrounded by easy wins. They built it through exile, illness, loss, and the daily grind of an empire that never stopped demanding more from them. And they still found a way to call their lives good, measured against nothing but their own standard, held honestly, day after day. You are not behind. You were never in the race you thought you were in. The only timeline that matters is the one you are standing in right now, and it is still wide open, still waiting on the next thing you choose to do with it. Lesson 5. The amount of energy you spend defending yourself in arguments that exist only inside your own head is energy that will never come back to you. And most of those arguments never even needed to happen. Notice how much of your day actually gets eaten by conversations that are not real. The reply you are rehearsing for a comment someone left 2 days ago. The version of an argument with a family member where you finally say the thing you have always wanted to say, except you are saying it in the shower, alone, to nobody. The imaginary defense you are building in case someone questions a decision you have not even made public yet. None of those people are in the room with you. None of those conversations are happening. And yet they are costing you real attention, real time, real peace, as if they were happening right now in front of you.
This habit is so common that almost nobody notices they are doing it until someone points it out directly, and then it becomes impossible to unsee. You are not living in your actual life during those moments. You are living in a courtroom you built yourself, defending a case nobody filed, against an accuser who is not even aware the trial is happening. Marcus Aurelius dealt with actual enemies, actual betrayals, actual people working against him inside his own court, and even he had to remind himself constantly not to waste his limited hours on imagined slights and rehearsed grievances. He wrote that it is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. The event you are angry about right now, the comment, the slight, the thing someone said, is not what is draining you. Your replaying of it is what is draining you, and replaying is optional in a way that the original event never was. Here is the part that actually matters for someone who feels like they are falling behind.
Every minute spent in an imaginary argument is a minute not spent building the actual life you are trying to build. You cannot rehearse a comeback to a comment from 3 days ago and simultaneously give full attention to the work in front of you. The two cannot share the same 5 minutes. And if you add up how many 5-minute blocks get lost to imaginary courtrooms over the course of a single week, you start to understand exactly where a meaningful chunk of your time and energy has actually been going, while you sat there wondering why you do not feel further ahead.
The fix is not to suppress the thought when it shows up, because suppression rarely works and usually makes the thought louder. The fix is to notice it the moment it starts and ask one simple question. Is this person actually in front of me right now, asking me to respond? If the answer is no, the conversation does not need to happen, not even in your head, and you are free to set it down without finishing it. This sounds small, almost too small to matter, until you actually try it for a single day. Catch yourself mid-rehearsal. Notice the imaginary courtroom forming. Ask the question. Set it down. Do that 10 times in one day, and you will feel something you have not felt in a while. A kind of mental quiet that was always available to you, sitting underneath all that noise you mistook for necessary thinking. Seneca warned a friend once about exactly this pattern, about people who suffer more in imagination than they ever would in reality, rehearsing disasters and arguments that mostly never arrive in the form they were dreaded in. He called it a kind of self-inflicted suffering, paid in advance for events that either never happen or happen far more mildly than the version rehearsed in private. You have been paying that tax for years without realizing there was ever an option to stop. Today, the next time you catch yourself defending a position to someone who is not there, stop mid-sentence, even if it is only happening in your head. Ask whether this conversation is real right now. If it is not, let it go, and redirect that same energy toward the actual person or the actual task sitting in front of you, the one that has been waiting patiently while you argued with a version of reality that was never going to show up to collect on it. Lesson 6. The version of yourself that you keep performing for an audience, the polished one, the one who never struggles out loud, is costing you more than you realize. And most of what you call falling behind is actually just the exhaustion of keeping that performance running. There is a quiet kind of tired that has nothing to do with how much you slept. It comes from the daily effort of managing how you appear, making sure the struggle stays hidden, making sure the uncertainty never shows on the outside, even when it is loud on the inside. You smile through the meeting while something in your personal life is falling apart. You post the confident caption while privately wondering if any of it is working. You answer, "I'm good," automatically, every single time, even on the days when you are very clearly not,
because admitting otherwise feels like losing ground in a race you are already anxious about losing.
That performance takes energy, real, measurable energy, the same energy you need for the actual work of building your life. And here is the part that almost nobody calculates honestly. The people you have been comparing yourself to, the ones who seem so far ahead, so put together, so unaffected by doubt, are very likely running the exact same performance you are. You are comparing your backstage to their front of house and concluding that they simply have more than you, when the truth is closer to this. You are both spending enormous energy hiding the same uncertainty, and neither of you is telling the other the truth about it.
Marcus Aurelius held one of the most powerful positions in the ancient world, and even he wrote privately, in pages never meant for anyone else's eyes, admitting his own irritability, his own doubts, his own struggle to live up to the standard he had set for himself. He did not perform certainty for his own journal. He used it as the one place where the mask could come off completely. And it is precisely because he allowed himself that honesty that his actual character grew stronger. You cannot fix what you refuse to admit is there, and you cannot grow past a struggle you spend all your energy concealing instead of facing. This does not mean you owe the entire internet your private struggles. It means you owe yourself at least one space. Even if it is just your own thoughts, even if it is a journal nobody else will ever read, where the performance stops and the honest accounting begins. Where am I actually struggling right now? What am I pretending is fine that is not actually fine? What would it cost me to admit that out loud, even just to myself? Epictetus made a distinction that applies directly here between what genuinely belongs to you and what is simply borrowed. Your reputation, the version of you that other people see and admire, was never fully yours to control, no matter how carefully you manage it. People will think what they think regardless of how polished the performance gets. What is actually yours is the truth of your own internal state, and spending your limited energy managing an image instead of addressing the actual state underneath it is, in his words, exchanging what is genuinely yours for what was never yours to begin with. The exhaustion you feel some days, the one that makes the gap between you and everyone else feel even wider, is very often not coming from the actual distance between your progress and theirs. It is coming from the sheer effort of maintaining a performance that was never sustainable in the first place, on top of the regular effort of actually living your life. Try this today. Find one person you trust, or even just a private page only you will read, and tell the truth about exactly where you are right now, without the polish. Not for sympathy, not for an audience, just to set the weight down for a moment and see how much lighter the rest of the day feels once you are no longer spending energy hiding something that was never as shameful as the hiding made it feel. You will likely find, the moment you stop performing certainty, that you have far more energy left over for the actual work of catching up to nothing but yourself, because that was always the only race that mattered. Lesson 7. Death is not a morbid subject to avoid until it forces itself into your life uninvited. It is the single fact that, once you actually sit with it, strips away almost everything you have been calling falling behind and shows you what was real the entire time. Picture for a moment someone on the final day of their life, looking back at everything that happened. Ask what that person would actually care about. Would they care that a friend bought a house 2 years before they did? Would they care about a follower count, a promotion they watched someone else get first, a milestone hit a few months later than they had hoped? Or would they care about something else entirely? Whether they told the people they loved that they loved them, whether they spent their days on things that mattered to them, or on a scoreboard borrowed from people whose approval never actually fed them. This is not a manipulation tactic to scare you into productivity. It is the oldest and most reliable filter the Stoics ever used, precisely because it works every single time you genuinely apply it. Marcus Aurelius kept death close in his own mind, not out of fear, but as a kind of clarity tool. He reminded himself that he could leave this life at any moment, and that this fact should shape what he did and thought and said, not with panic, but with a kind of sober honesty about what actually deserved his limited attention. Most of what feels urgent about falling behind evaporates completely under that filter. The anxious comparison, the quiet resentment toward people moving at a different pace, the imaginary scoreboard you have been carrying around for years, none of it survives contact with the plain fact that your time is not unlimited, and neither is theirs. Everyone you are comparing yourself to is also running out the same clock you are, at a pace nobody gets told in advance.
Seneca wrote something that should be read slowly rather than skimmed past, because it tends to land differently depending on how much attention you actually give it. He said that people are extremely careful to protect their property and their money. Yet when it comes to wasting time, they are the most wasteful in the one area where being careful would actually matter. We guard the wrong inventory. We track our progress against a stranger's bank account while spending the only currency that was ever truly limited, our actual hours, on anxious comparison that produces nothing. Here is what this lesson is actually asking of you, and it is more demanding than it first sounds. It is asking you to stop treating your life as a draft you will get around to living seriously once you catch up to some imaginary standard. There is no later version of you who has finally arrived enough to start truly living. There is only this version, right now, with exactly the time you currently have, and that time is the only material you will ever get to build anything with. This is also where the entire idea of falling behind finally collapses completely, because behind assumes there is a fixed amount of time everyone is racing through together, checking the clock at the same intervals. Nobody knows how much time they actually have. The people you think are ahead might be gone tomorrow. You might be here for another 60 years. Building your entire sense of worth around a race with an unknown finish line and competitors who do not even know they are running it was never a sound strategy. It was just the only strategy nobody taught you to question. So here is the final practice, the one that ties every lesson in this video together into something you can actually carry with you. Tonight, before you fall asleep, ask yourself one honest question. If this were the last ordinary day, the kind with nothing special scheduled, just an average Tuesday, would I be at peace with how I spent it? Not impressed, at peace. If the answer is yes, you were never behind. You were exactly where you needed to be, doing exactly what mattered, on a timeline that only ever belonged to you. That is the real measure, not the people around you, not the milestones, not the imaginary schedule you inherited from nowhere in particular. Just this question, asked honestly at the end of an ordinary day. If these 7 lessons gave you something to actually carry with you, hit like, send this to someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe to Stoic Origin so you do not miss the next one.